What is going on? My name is Angel Pinto, and this is The Forum, the podcast where professionals will gather, talk, and debate important issues and topics in the educational sector. Today's episode is called Ladies First. With the help of our lovely guests, we will be discussing women's roles in leadership, education, and youth development. We will also cover some current events. Now, before we get to the meat and potatoes, let me express how excited I am to welcome our special guest for today's episode.
So before we start, I just want to go quickly around the room and let everybody introduce themselves real quick. Let's start over here.
Right. I'm Zenobia. Currently teaching in the South Bronx, Mott Haven section, District 7, preschool.
That's a good area right
I'm Sadia. I am a social worker for the city for foster care.
I'm Kalela K. Currently, I'm just working on my K's Delights business, self-owned business. It's a baking business.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Danielle, and I'm actually the Students in Temporary Housing Coordinator for the West Farm School of the Bronx.
Bronx is deep.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm a guidance counselor in a charter school in Harlem. I work with high schoolers, and I've been doing it for about 5 years now.
Great. And we have three of our senior directors, Asia Scott, Naima Sowell, and of course Angel Pinto is here, and I'm Leo Coelho, the Executive Director of BHWH. So, when we were thinking about our first episode, me and Angel were talking a lot about, okay, what's going to be our first episode? What we need something to really kind of set the mark, really have a pulse of what's happening right now. Mm-hmm. And, there was nothing more important, I think, right now in this country than having a positive representation of our women, our black and brown women. I think where our country's at, especially with our current president and everything, I think that it is time to highlight our black and brown women because we need them to get us out of this mess right now. And I think that one of my biggest focuses is going to be making sure that our black and brown women that are taking on the challenge of developing our youth and educating our youth and supporting our communities and being entrepreneurs have a platform to be able to speak and do what they need to say, and we'll have our continued support with everything. So that's the most important kickoff that we needed. Like, I think this is what we need to have to start our podcast, right, Andrew?
Absolutely. So some of you guys mentioned your experience in individual roles. Let's talk about those individual roles and how difficult it may be as a woman to make an impact in that position. So, Novia, would you care to start?
As a woman who's teaching in pre-K, I don't think it's difficult to make an impact because I think children, children are used to a matriarch in most cases. So I think coming into this field and working with children that are this young, I'm like a second mother. I'm like an auntie. I'm like their neighbor that they trust. So getting that rapport and that relationship with the children is not so much of a thing. Sometimes maybe winning the trust of parents naturally. But as far as having difficulty entering in the field, being a woman,
you mentioned that the area you work in is the South Bronx, right? Now, in our previous episode, we talked about all the factors that affect that neighborhood, right?
No, let's give it what the proper description.
So
the South Bronx is the poorest congressional district in the entire country, and I like to make sure that people understand that when it comes to education and community service, I consider it ground zero. So if you are educating a child in the South Bronx, if you are developing a child, if you are having any type of impact on any youth in the South Bronx, that's impact that's going to be felt generationally and stuff, right? So I just want to make sure that people understand that where Zenobia is working at, where many of us have worked at, and some of us will be working at, like in the South Bronx, that is the most populated population of people under the poverty level and stuff, right? So that when you work in that area, like you really, really about this work.
Now, with the age that you work with, do you notice any challenges maybe with parents?
I would say maybe culturally, because as an African American female, I'm dealing with a lot of some are actually Native African, and then a lot of Hispanic, and their status, can be kind of shaky. So they're very leery of. They look at a teacher as an authority or somebody that's official. So it's but so much they want me to know. Case in point, we have to do home visits at the beginning of the year. So there's a lot of like,
that level you guys do home visits?
Yeah.
I do home visits for high school.
We do home visits.
So wow. For pre-K.
We need home visits on every level.
Yeah, I can see
it. We need all that we can
They can be very evasive. They won't come to the door, or they'll meet you downstairs, or have to do it in the park. And to take the pressure off and to gain the trust, it's like wherever you are willing to open the door, I'll meet you there.
Right.
But it is interesting to watch the dynamic shift throughout the year, how they'll start to open up and come to you. So when I feel that happening, it's like, yes, my work is being done. I'm reaching the family.
And you're making an impact.
Yeah.
Sadi, would you care to share a little bit about your individual role and how difficult it may be to have an impact as a woman there?
So now I am a social worker in foster care. Before I was with the homeless population. And I spent the majority of my career as a social worker in the homeless population.
So you have some stories for us today.
Oh, yeah. So the transition now from me is more easier.
Okay.
Starting with the homeless population, I was in a shelter. I was in shelter for, settings. And the hardest part of being in the shelter setting is that the turnover with families and then the turnover with the social workers, gaining the trust of a family. And, it's hard because they're like,
repeat that process.
Right, you're my social worker today, but
tomorrow.
You could quit tomorrow because this job is not for everybody. Absolutely. Being a social worker is not for everybody. It's tough skin. But now in, me maneuvering over to the foster care, it's a bit more easy in transition part. But when it's the gaining the trust, it's still hard because I'm dealing with children from 0 to 24 because now the age of aging out is 24 and they're thinking about extending it to 26. So with gaining that trust of a child who is 17 but done moved 7 times in 1 month, it's like, I don't want to talk to you because you're the 8th person I talk to. So that's the hardest part, just doing your job. The easiest part is showing up.
She's being very honest because not only working in that population and she's also, the CEO of her own non-profit organization as well too. So so give us a little bit of information on that as well too.
Can't miss that.
Give me a model.
Got a boss.
He wants to talk about that. Okay? I don't like talking. I'm very humble and very, laid back when it comes to that. But being a CEO of my own nonprofit, which I celebrate. Yeah. I'm actually celebrating my 10th year anniversary this year. So being the CEO of my own nonprofit is called Los Angeles Society, and it's that name because it's my story. And from 16 to 21, I moved 21 times, and I was hungry, homeless, I attempted suicide. Thank God for God that I'm still here. But before I was a social worker, I was a lost angel. So being on both sides, I get to see why kids don't want to be in the system, and then I've never got to see why a child wanted to be in the system because I never was in the system. I just moved 21 times, to different places. The hardest thing about being the CEO and being able to look from the inside out and from the outside in is being able to take off your emotions. They teach you as a social worker. This is what they teach you. I have not mastered it. I don't know if I ever mastered it because I just feel like you need that to be who I am, right?
You can't turn that off.
You can't turn it off.
It's not a switch.
And I think it makes you who you are in the process.
Right.
Well.
So not being able to turn it off has caused me as a social worker and as an individual suspensions for 3 months and write-ups and right and go in the office and talk to this person because you're not supposed to get up to hug a client, but
you truly understand
understands what it means to be unstable.
Absolutely.
Right? So being in that realm is hard to turn it off. Like I'm a human being before I'm a social worker, and not only that, now I'm a mother, so like my motherly instincts kicks in. It's like, All right, and then I'm a CEO. So it's like you have to draw the line because my hugging can be thought of misinterpreted for something else. And going into the field of social work and now being the CEO, I'm like, well, no, I need this. And the crazy part is, it sounds crazy, but it's real honest. I only went into the field to gain my own knowledge of how other people run their nonprofits. So I know how
research.
Not to research.
We doing research.
So I guess that's where the capitalism came in, right? Like you were speaking about.
Right.
So I only did that so that I know, when I'm sitting at the table with the city and the boards and I'm asking them for this and they telling me no, but you don't know. I do know because I know how you ran your system for 7 years. I worked for you and it's horrible. It ain't doing nothing. It's just an open and revolving door for the same families that come in and come back and come back. So it's hard now, like sitting at the table with a bunch of people who you have to now delegate to say, this is not working because you're not doing this. And they don't respect it until I come out and I say, I know what I'm talking about because I once was that child. Once I say that, it changed the dynamics of the conversation. Everybody's singing the same song as me, right? So, there's times I'm sitting in front of DHS, Department of Homeless Services. I'm like, this child is not going to listen to you because you have somebody sitting across from him that don't know his struggle. You have a Caucasian who's from Valley Stream.
Who can't relate.
You placed a Caucasian in an urban community to be a social worker in the homeless population, and she don't even know what it is not to be.
Might have the academic credentials that's needed.
Right.
Probably has the academic credentials that's needed. Probably has,
the money to change his life.
Right.
But the experience.
But the challenge is that the kids can't and the families can't relate to them.
Right. Like I've had, even working at Promise Academy, I had a parent that the child ran away, right? And he'll tell you, I was like the realist. Saturdays I would go into work. I wasn't even paid for the 8 hours I would be at work on Saturdays. I just ran a girls group. And I was like, listen, I want y'all 12 girls to come in and I'm going to teach you self-esteem. I'm going to teach you that sex is not the only way that's not how love starts, right? Mm-hmm. So I would come in and I would talk to these young people that nobody could reach. And then I get calls like 2 o'clock in the morning, like, this person ran away. And they said they're not going home unless Miss Simmons, at the time that was my name, unless Miss Simmons come talk to them. And I'm like, but that's...
And she being honest, because she came to me and she was like, I want to run this thing on Saturdays and do this and that. I said, you know what? That sounds great, but I can't pay you though.
And I said,
I was like, it's not in the budget.
It's just exact words.
It's not in the budget.
It's not in the budget. That's what
she was like, I got it. Right. Don't worry about it. I said, all right, go ahead, do it.
I think it's dope how your life just literally came back full circle.
And that's just the universe. Like me, I really get up every day. Like it took me a while to get there because even in the interim of me going through pillow to post, it's weird to say that I don't get comfortable anywhere. I'm never comfortable anywhere. It's why I don't like spending the night at people's house because the mentality is that when I get up in the morning, I don't live here. I got to get up to go. Wow. So I'm comfortable in my own space. But it took me a while to get there. Like now it's like, okay, this is what happens. Life happens and you got to give out. You got to tell the universe what you want and the universe give it back. And you got to, be able to go. And not until my daughter's 10. So 10 years ago was the first time I had my own apartment. It was the first time I had Christmas since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So these are the things that, when I go into the communities and being a social worker, I became a social worker to learn the system, one, and to go into the system to better change it. Because to be honest, people go to be social workers for the money, and I don't know how the hell, can I curse? I don't know how the hell they do that because we don't even get paid nothing.
Yeah, we're not
I'm not getting paid $120,000 to be a social worker. I'm getting paid enough to where I need another job because this ain't cutting it. My daughter about to go to college in a couple of years. So in order to understand the dynamics of, we're social workers and what we do, it has to be like a love. You can't take somebody from textbook and put them into reality. You got to take reality and put it into textbook. Because these teachers now, they're teachers, and these social workers, that's just what they are. They're social workers. So it's a give and take, but I just say I survived to help somebody else survive. Mm-hmm. So I can't give up no matter what. No matter how many donors we don't get, no matter how many sponsors I don't get as a CEO, thank God for God, because 10 years, I've been doing it, and I don't know where it come from. I guess the universe provides,
So Ms. K has a common theme with, Sadia, where she also worked at HCZ, but Ms. K, you was down with HCZ for a while. On a lot of levels and stuff. Okay, talk to him about business. And then you saw your own business. But Kay has a unique perspective here, because Kay, she has some boys and she's raising and stuff, and they're in HCZ. Some of them are in Promise. They went through the programs and stuff, but they're grown men already. Yeah. So talk to us about, like, what was that like? What was that like?
Well, I was with the agency for 14 years.
14.
So
that's
raising three boys and then raising hundreds of kids to thousands of kids was a bit challenging, because the expectation is you have to make sure that these kids who aren't yours by birth, you have to make sure that they are on the right path. Because you think as a mother, your kids got it. They already got it. But in reality, they don't. Because you can't separate the two. Yeah. If you're working with a set of children in the community who need mothers like me, you got to do the same for your own kids. So working for the zone, it took a lot from me raising them.
Yep.
But I'm happy to say I got 2 in college. 1 in, 1 on his way. And I got 1 more who's quite a struggle, but I know he's going to be okay. He got some bodies. He got some people that can help him.
Yes.
But it is a genuine job. You have to love those kids. And working there, I saw people just coming in, getting that money and leaving, not really caring. I was a safety night. I was a receptionist. I was a data. I was a...
We did windows.
We did windows.
We did garbage.
We cleaned up. We cooked.
We gave out candy.
Giving out candy, walking kids. It was just a lot. It's a role you have to play. If you want to work in that kind of field, you have to play those roles. But if you don't want to be there, you got to leave, because a child will know if you don't care about them. So no longer being there didn't stop me from loving kids and working with kids. So I started baking. I love to cook. I love to bake. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to just start giving out cupcakes and candy and treats and stuff for Halloween. Let's see how this goes. So this was the 4th year, last year, giving out candy to the community. Every time Sadia needs me for an event, I got her. Every time.
200 cupcakes. Every time.
And it's just like, oh, are you serious? But I know it's for a good cause. It's the love. So I didn't stop my love for kids. But the reality of it is, if you don't get the parents involved, that's where it goes downhill.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think your experience in the Harlem Children's Zone, did it help you become a better parent? Did it help you? How did it help you parent?
Or did it hurt?
Or did it
hurt you being a parent?
That's a great question, and that was a greater question, because it was painful working for the zone. It was painful because it took a lot out of my life. I don't think I knew what came on TV. Like, I don't think
your life was HCZ.
My life was HCZ. 6 a.m., 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, depending on the situation. So, it was just like, we're there. But it hurt because you forgot about your kids. And then it was always, but why are you getting in trouble? You knew you had to get this done. Like, what do you... So all the tension was building up. And I was throwing it back at my own kids. But going to this school and like, hey, how are you? And it was just like, damn.
And so you find, did you find yourself being more patient, more developing with other people's kids than you were with your own?
With my own, right.
Yeah.
Because it affected them. Because it was like,
it's
damn.
Pressure.
Like, Ma, you don't hug me like you just did that young lady over there. Like, and it hit me like, damn. So now that I'm not there, and they're older, but I'm all over the place. I'm all over them. Like, hey, what you doing? And let's do this. Let's go out. And then it's like, oh, Mom, I'm going over here. And it's like, damn. Because even when they were smaller, I was able to go find time to take them out every weekend. Take them out. But now they were getting older, and it was just like, they got it. I'm going to focus here. Mm-hmm. But now they're older, and I want to be all over them, and it's like, nah, Mom, chilling.
What advice would you give to maybe future parents who are working 10 hours in the field, in the youth development field, as they embark on becoming parents, like from your experience? You got to find time for you. Because you can't help anybody else if you're not equipped to do anything for yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the problem. That's the problem. I have a sister who's currently working for the Harlem Children's Zone. She's amazing, but the hours takes away from her 4-year-old. I'm always with my 4-year-old nephew. And it's just like, you have to experience a work shift that is feasible for you and your son. Because you're tired, you're miserable, you're working 6 days a week. Like come on. You got all these bodies here, which is amazing. The organization is great. But the people, they make it go down. They got to be more supportive. Spread the work. It's enough people there. Right. If it's all of us in this room, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that. Spread the work. She can't do half, I do half, and you just like, tweedledee, like, no, that's not how that works. You got the bodies. It's 1 million people showing up at these marches.
1 million.
But how many of you are actually doing the work?
Right.
Like, how many of you? Like, come on. It was to the point we was leaving at school, 10 o'clock, riding that white truck
to get dropped off to the train.
Dropped home because that's how long we were in that building. But it stems from us. If you're going to work in that field, you got to have a care. Get the parents involved too. Get the parents involved. But I have to say, I think I did an amazing job as a parent. Mm-hmm. I think I did.
As a single parent.
As a single mother. And I think I'm going to pat myself on the back.
Right.
But, you know, I still have my struggles with the children, with my kids, but they're going to be fine. I know they're going to be fine, you know.
And the fact that you can reflect on that.
Right,
and be cognizant of where you went wrong and what you're going to do better and what you have been doing better.
Right. And it's not to bash anyone. Mm-hmm. It's not to bash any organizations, anywhere. Mm-hmm. You got to always make it better. Right. That new batch, every school year, how are we going to make it better? Right. Stop doing the same things over and over and over. Make it better. That's the idea. The whole idea.
So let me tell you, you know, Danny, you know, you want to talk about doing a lot of things with the organization and stuff like that. I mean, she was probably part of like the founding team and stuff, you want to call it.
She was on the Harriet Tubman team.
She was on the Harriet Tubman
Underground Railroad.
She was Underground Railroad and everything and stuff. So Danny,
holding the torch.
And she was what some of us started calling certain people. We was calling them lifers. We was calling them, yo, these are lifers.
Thank God you got off lifers.
They're not going nowhere. They lifers. They lifers and stuff.
Yo,
you know what I'm saying?
A lifer. I ain't
but Danny's, you know, she has a very unique story because she's seen the entire evolution of a nonprofit organization. It's the good, the bad, where it's gone through, and so she just brings a whole different perspective and stuff. So Danny, like, let them know from like I want you to take it from the point where you was knocking on doors in St. Nicholas Project, offering people air conditioners to be happy about people coming in there, like on that level, Danny.
That's where I was raised too.
All right, so I've been with the Harlem Children's Zone for 12 years. Mm-hmm. Started out as a student advocate. Did that for about 8 months and was promoted to parent coordinator of the community center's after school program. And then a couple of years after that, there was an initiative of a new school being built in the center of St. Nicholas Project.
Jesus.
Who thought of that?
Right. The kids were saying it like, are they kidding me? We got beef with 2-9. We got beef with St. Nick.
First episode, I was hearing stories with ducking and everybody.
Under the cars and everything.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Ducking. Kids got shot.
Right.
It was real.
Yeah,
it was real.
Yeah. And so with this initiative, my job went from parent coordinator to community. We had a team called the CRT. It was a community relations team. and it was myself with 3 other individuals. And what we did was, our job for the summer was to go into St. Nicholas Development and build relationship with every tenant. And so what I had to do was, I had a project where I had to recruit 100 jobs for 100 teens in St. Nicholas Development that was not a part of the Harlem Children's Zone.
So, but wait, Danny, let me put that in perspective for people so
Wait
people
a
understand.
minute.
Yeah, one
Right.
job is
You have let me put this in perspective for y'all. You guys know how, like, we all know what happens in projects, right? What's happening in projects, right? So there's just drug trafficking, other things happening. There's a lot of great people happening, but living there, but there's a lot of things happening, right? So when you start talking about that, you're gonna drop a school in the middle of these projects. I want you to understand the ripple effect that begins to cause now, right? Because you ever drive by a school and it says school zone. Right. If you are caught doing X, Y, and Z in this, you will be, and it takes it to the next level, right? Yeah. Right. So then now Danny's knocking on these doors, telling people we're about to drop a school in the middle of your projects, and to the point where it's like there wasn't. And Andrew, check it. There wasn't even a street there.
There wasn't.
Danny, am I right or wrong?
It was a dead end.
It was a parking lot. So they actually, construction-wise, put a street that merged 8th Avenue and 7th Avenue, and they put a street right there.
Which used to be in like the 50s,
right?
In the 60s,
right?
But then they closed.
They closed it because they put the project and they put all that stuff in the middle. And but now they're going around telling them we're gonna open this whole block up. We're gonna put a school right in the middle of it. And
make it hot.
We're gonna take all your parking spots and stuff like that, and we're gonna take the park that's there, and then all the kind of individuals that were dealing in other activities, extracurricular activities, or street pharmaceutical activities. All of a sudden, like, hold on, y'all gonna put a school in the middle of our projects
and
now.
My money's on.
And when we making money, right? Because what do schools bring? Schools bring more police presence. They bring all these things in there, right? So you now. Nobody's happy with this, right. The people that are legally employed are not happy because now we're taking parking, we're causing traffic, we're doing all of this. The people that are not, in the streets, they like, hold up, you bringing this heat over here. But guess who's knocking on each and everybody's door like, hey, hi.
We want to
be friends. Wait, Daddy.
I got to hear a couple stories. Were you at all getting pushback from any of these residents?
Pushback? Oh, you mean literally pushed?
Please talk about that. We had public hearings. There's a school on, I believe, not a school, it's like a community center on 127th between 7th and Lenox. And there was a public hearing there for the school to be built. Mm-hmm. And we had, I want to say it was maybe 75% of St. Nicholas residents to about 10 parents that I got from Promise Academy.
10?
About 10. Wow.
Nobody wanted that smoke.
Because what happened is, you're not going to get, what happened is, it didn't make sense, right? So we need parents to go and speak well of the school, right? But at the same time, you're not going to get parents that live in Mount Vernon to come and speak well of the school,
right?
Projects, because they don't want their kid in the projects,
right?
So what happens is, I had to only recruit parents that live in the projects that knows what the school has to offer, that will go to the public house. Okay.
And speak on behalf of the school, right?
Right. So,
but they didn't even want the school there.
My recruitment I had to be strategic in how I recruited parents to do that. So I had to get parents that was from Grant Project, which is a little further over. That's on the west side. We had parents that was from Drew Hamilton. We had parents that was from St. Nicholas Development. And we had some parents that live in like the Brownstone.
So you brought surrounding areas together.
And so what those parents did, they just came and spoke well of the school and what the school has to offer. But the community was not trying to hear it. So in that, besides getting 100 jobs for those teenagers who we don't know, which I had to build relationship with companies, for kids that I do not know.
You're not ready for public advocate for what?
I cannot discipline. For kids that I, because it's an initiative, right? So on top of finding 100 jobs for them, for every person that came and said that they had any type of respiratory
illness,
problem,
right?
we provided an air conditioner.
Free air conditioner.
Myself, with another community organizer from the Harlem Children's Zone, with 2 of Harlem Children's Zone maintenance men, had to go to those apartments with the air conditioners. And while they were installing the air conditioning, I was selling them the programs that we had to offer to the community.
But wait, Danny. But also, for those of you that, we got to think about our listeners too. Some people never been in projects.
Right.
Never been in projects and stuff like that. So I want you to think about, if you don't live in the projects and you never been there, now you got to go to apartment 18F.
Right.
And try to sell them.
And we got this air conditioning. We're bringing this in. The elevator light is flickering and stuff like that.
We had to wait for people to come in and out.
In a hot lobby.
Okay. No, we're not even in the lobby.
We're not in the lobby. We're still outside.
But you standing out there with an AC that could have been robbed and taken from you in the middle of the project.
Well, you standing with brand new air conditioners in the lobby.
And so 10 apartments don't have ACs, but you got 10 ACs with you, and you possibly getting robbed.
But then, so at the end of the day, I want you to understand, like, Danny's saying these stories because she believed in what the cause was, right?
Right.
So she understood that. At the end of the day, bringing a school, because I'm going to give you the reason why they put that school in that particular project. Because St. Nicholas Housing Project had the highest high school dropout rate in the city. So the initiative thinking was, if we can't get the kids to go to school,
we bring the school to
we're
them.
going to bring the school to them.
It's outside. There's no excuse.
There's no excuse. You come down your house, you come down, and you go across the street,
pick.
and you get first pick and stuff like that,
Paper
right?
makes sense.
So think about from Danny's perspective, she believed in that cause. She believed that this can really make a difference in the lives of all of these people. She believed more than the actual people that lived there. To be honest with you and stuff, right? So she put her life on the line, right? She put her well-being on the line to push this thing into existing and spread this message.
In action.
That's love in action.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the work that sometimes doesn't get seen. Because let me tell you, right now there's a big, beautiful building in the middle of 129th Street and all this other stuff. But you know what? Nobody knows of the work that Danny does, except for Danny and the people that know her and the people that understand the work that she did and stuff. So this is why this type of platform is important, right? Because I want people to understand that those buildings and those graduates and those people that are going on would not be there without the work and the stuff and the sacrifices and the things that people like Danny have made. And stuff
willingness to put herself on the line. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Jacqueline, please, I would like to know what age you work with and as a guidance counselor.
I work with the older students, so juniors, seniors.
And the reason why, because I know the age groups have certain challenges attached to them. Would you care to speak about the challenges in your specific age group? And you put on a smile, and I get it because I work with that population. I can only imagine some of the stories you got. Would you care to share some challenges being young and trying to build these relationships with these kids at a high school level?
So I would say that trying to be real with them about what's to come and feeling like, what is it going to take to get through this?
We ask ourselves. I think we all ask ourselves that every single day.
And I think like my biggest takeaway is you can't want things for people more than they want it for themselves.
That's true.
Like you would just drive yourself crazy. So I don't know. That would be like the hardest thing for me because I do want so much more for them. I want them to believe in themselves, but at the end of the day, there are limits.
Absolutely.
If they don't possess that desire in themselves.
So with kids who give you that pushback and maybe don't want it for themselves as much as you want them, do you give them a little space, get back to them, reignite the flame of graduating or whatever type of academic success? Like, what do you do when somebody gives you pushback?
Initially, the distance, yes. But I do have to say, like, I just love them through it.
And at a certain point, they're going to come back.
Right. That's probably the most rewarding thing about my job is having the kids come back and hearing the experience and feeling like, yes, I did get through to them because they're saying like, okay, I understand what you was trying to do. You know what I mean? It just feeling like I am something for them that I felt like I needed when I was their age. Is incredibly rewarding.
You speak about the troubles or relating to some of these kids and building these relationships. What type of characteristics do you need to relate in this field with these kids? Patience, right?
Absolutely. You have to be empathetic to the things that they're going through that they don't even tell you. Like the group that I'm working with now, I've known them since they were freshmen, and I'm like amazed at the things that I'm finding out, like going through the college application process with them, and having them tell me things. I'm just like, I had no idea that you were going through this. Like I'm amazed at the things that they carry around with them.
The baggage they carry
every day.
And sometimes like nobody knows.
Right. And it's like in hindsight, you were thinking like, damn, I wish I like could have known. I could have been more compassionate in certain aspects, and it teaches you that you just have to be cognizant of the fact that you don't know what they're going through.
And it's a learning process too. I don't think we all come in on day one expecting to know what everybody's going through.
Right.
As we build those relationships and as we let some kids fail, we learn how to achieve success through that process as well.
Yeah.
So, Angel, it was important for me to have Richie here because, I knew we were going to have a lot of folks that talk about, like the beginning aspects of like the work and, being part of an organization from the beginning, the grassroots and everything. And there's challenges on that level, of course, and everything, right? But then I think what people then start to lose focus on is that once, new buildings are built, all these other things are in place, and people are, making good money, and people are going to the White House, and people are getting on TV and on the newspaper and stuff like that. There's still a lot of challenges now still happening, right? So then now the Richies of the world now are the ones that are dealing with those challenges, right? So she's now at a point where now she's the one that has to kind of, get the baton passed to her now and say, okay, yeah, we got this new building up, we got all these finances, we got this, we got money, we got this, we got all this coming in, but we still got poor black and brown kids in our community that don't know what it means to go to college yet, right? They don't know how to fill out a college application, that don't know how to build skill sets to be able to survive when they go away to college and stuff, right? Because, the initiative is, we got to get kids in college, we got to get kids in college. But when the kids go out there, Richie could speak to it herself, like a lot of them don't function well out there, right? Richie, what is it that we're not doing right getting them prepared when they do go away to college and as we're preparing them for college that's not academic wise?
I think the number one thing is coddling. Like,
that's good.
They don't have the capacity to understand consequences. They're not held accountable, and it's frustrating because again, I don't want them to learn the hard way, but I'm like learning more and more that it feels like the only way.
I have to speak to that. Working with pre-K, there's so much in the template at these workshops that we're learning that doesn't allow a child to learn how to fail. You learn so much from not having or from building something, a simple block structure that falls down. We're going to start this again. You're not going to throw a fit. It's not anyone's fault. Just let's do it again. These kind of concepts are being watered down now in pre-K, and it's a shock because, again, there's so many lessons to be learned about resilience, about a plan B. So if this doesn't work, what else would I do? And these things are being fudged over for the sake of the child's feelings or like emotional responsive practice, this thing that they promote now, which is good because it gives the kids a platform to deal with their emotions. But a lot of it is geared towards, being quick to fix it, and fudge it over and make it okay, as opposed to helping them find the lesson in, didn't work out for you. How did that feel? Right. What would you do different next time? How could we, do this different? And it's early as pre-K, 3s and 4s.
And it's crazy that we could still have like similar situations despite different age groups.
Right, kindergarten through high school.
And we're talking about two developmental to like different in age groups from pre-K to high school, and it's almost funny how we can still tie them all up again.
Can I? The crazy part is like being at Promise, right? I loved what I did. One of my biggest pushbacks was the consequences that they did not have to deal with. I would say detention, and because you felt the need to be this child's friend, or you wanted this child, you felt the easiest way to let that child open up is to let that child out of detention. My thought process behind it was that's not reality, because if you go out and rob somebody, you're gonna go to jail. Yeah. So what you said is it's so dynamic because children need those consequences, and I think that's what happens when they stand on the street corners or they cut school because there's no consequences. Okay, the consequences from mommy is going to be to keep me quiet. Here's your new iPhone. Here's your latest pair of Uggs. Because I would have students that I'm like, you can't read. How do you have... I had a student tell me, Miss Simmons, mind your business. And in the back of my head, you're in 7th grade, but you can't read. So, no, we cannot have a dialogue about why you need the newest pair of Uggs or why I feel like you should go to BBQs with us. I don't feel like you should. There's no reward you didn't do anything for reward. And I always used to tell them, you don't get rewarded for the things you're supposed to do in life. That's not what you get rewarded for. You're supposed to go to school and get an education. You're supposed to want the things out of life. I never told them that you needed to go to college because the reality is you don't need to go to college to be successful. But you do need that education and background if you want to be taken serious, right? Because to tell them that, it would be me lying to them, right? And me giving them my own perspective and my own look. I wanted theirs. But there was no consequences. Like, you should not be in detention on a phone. You should not be in detention on a computer. We should not be bringing you out of detention to walk you to the cafeteria because detention is where you need to be because they're not letting you out of Rikers Island to go use your iPhone or to buy the latest sneakers. So, like, accountability for kids is like, people don't realize how crucial it is because they go from your age and then they get to her and they're like, well, she didn't make me do anything. So why am I getting to you in 12th grade? But in 1st grade, my teacher didn't tell me that I needed to do this, but you gonna tell me in 12th grade? So the disconnect comes with not being accountable.
But then you don't know what to do. Right. The favorite line was, if you say this to me, I'm going to get you fired.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, you heard that too?
I should have been fired.
And it was like...
Right, because kids learn early who had the power.
Yeah, they did.
You're stuck. As an adult, you're like, damn, this kid probably does have the power to get me fired. And it's like, that's the famous line. And it's like, but where did you get that from?
Right.
The coddling, being in the adult's business, adults allowing you to be in their business. So then you're scared because you don't know, all right, you could sit there, you're in detention, but just put your phone down. So now you got to be their friend. Right. And you're trying to keep your job. Them, but you know your job is in their hands.
It is.
But nobody, Gracie, you can kind of speak best to this because, you run a middle school and a high school program. Right? So you like that, right? That was real pro. That was like a pro move right there. But, you running 6 all the way up to 12th grade, right? So that's middle school. Middle school and high school, probably some of the most challenging grades and ages and stuff. And yeah, it's challenging when it comes to what does discipline look like, what does this look like, what does that look like, and every child is different. So and there's always that saying that I believe in is like you don't have to treat every child the same, but you do have to treat every child fair, right? So yeah, right. Exactly, right? So how does that look? Basically, like on the middle school and high school level and stuff, man.
It looks unfair. It looks inconsistent. I think it also creates a dysfunction between like the staff and the students in regards to exactly what you guys were speaking to in terms of like, well, I can go to Ms. Danielle and I know that she's gonna give me X, Y, and Z, but I know if I go to Ms. Gracie, it's like she's gonna have a more strict level of consequences in regards to what that is, and that might not necessarily be the case. But it happens based on relationships that students have with adults, depending on who their parents are, right? The pushback that we're going to get from even the parents, right? Like, if you have a difficult parent, setting those boundaries and consequences and actually following through with them are going to look completely different with a parent who doesn't really show up, right? Like, those consequences are going to be there because there's no one to kind of push back. Mm-hmm. So I think, yeah, it is the kids, but it's also what's happening at home. And we can't necessarily speak to that depending on who their parents are. So we can't change the home. But I think we do have to be consistent with the kids in regards to what discipline looks like. Because the issues that we have in middle school are definitely going to carry over into high school, right?
Just like what we have,
right. We have it. Yeah. We have it currently. So we had some students who were really difficult. Now they transition up to high school, and it's like the summer's a shock because you're trying to learn the students at the same time while you're getting them, but yet program has to constantly run, and you don't even know the kids you're dealing with. And so I think that level of expectation is not real. And so I think we need to really take a look at who the kids are that we service, right? The issues that they currently have. And then how do we address those? But how do we make sure staff is actually prepared to combat those issues? Because we can say whatever, but if you don't properly train the staff or make sure that they're going to be okay with the students, it's still not going to work.
You know, everybody on this table for you guys, you know, you're here because you provide, you know, a perspective from the female perspective, right? And we're talking about youth development, education, things like that. Like, is being a woman a plus? Make it harder? Like, what does it do to the work that you do and stuff? You know, anybody can chime in.
It's sometimes harder.
Why?
Depending on the role.
It's sometimes harder depending on the role, but it's sometimes harder because just like the house, right? Regardless, it's like you need a male, at least the way I feel. It's like there needs to be some type of male dominance or male presence in regards to our students. If they come from a home that's lacking a father, having that male presence on the floor in the building matters. If they are missing their mom, right? Having certain females around are going to help build those relationships and help create structure or provide an opportunity for them to learn how to relationship build and gain social skills. So I think it's beneficial in a lot of ways, but I think there does need to be a balance between like the male and female.
Right. So it's not about that, you know, from the gender perspective, like one perspective has more of an impact than the other. It's just that there's a lack of one more than the other and stuff, right? So if you guys are providing the perspective from the female gender and stuff like that, the students need that balance of that male perspective as well too, to be able to develop and to, you know, flourish to who they need to be and stuff. So because, and I'll be honest with you, in this line of work and in, you know, youth development and education, you know, the field is dominated by women, to be honest with you, you know, and it's not no knock against, you know, men and nothing like that, but it's just that, you know, us as men, when we're in the process of trying to establish ourselves and get into certain, you know, career paths and stuff like that, we have to kind of move a little faster, right? And so, you know, the education and youth development field, and you guys can all attest to it, it's not a field you go into to make money, right?
No.
You're not gonna make a lot of money, right? No. But when you are, as a man, when you carry around this kind of conception of like, oh, you have to be the breadwinner, and stuff, you have to be this, you have to be that. Now you're like, nah, I need to find a job that pays me the most money and stuff, right? Like I just don't have time to go, you know, be a teacher and do this and basically, like, how many of us, you know, raise your hand if you spent your own money in this work and stuff, right? Like we all do it. Like, you know, like we all, you know, spend our own money. We do all kind of things and stuff like that. So when you're in a position where you're like that, like you just can't, you know. So from a man's perspective, like it's hard for a man to get into these fields at times because we just deal with certain things. So that's why I think the population swings more towards the women being able to do it and stuff, you know.
Add to that also, I'm sorry, to Gracie's point, is that also the perception that the roles that females are supposed to play, you know, when it comes to, you know, with respect to, you know, children, we're supposed to be the nurturing ones, we're supposed to be, you know, the caring ones, we're supposed to be the ones that, you know, but we're not supposed to be the hard ones, we're not supposed to be the tough ones. And then it also goes into the role that we're supposed to play as leaders, you know, in the education field as well. So we're not supposed to, you know, be hard on staff. We're not supposed to. It's just supposed to be, you know, a certain role that we're supposed to play when we're, you know, the leaders and the educators too. That makes it, you know, tough for us, you know, doing the things that we do.
But then you don't want to feel defeated,
right?
Because that's another reason why it's hard for women. because we feel defeated sometimes. You have a child with someone, then you end up being by yourself, raising that child. You're defeated. Then you spend half of that child's life feeling like you can't do it. And then you got men sometimes who tell you, and other women, your own people, tell you can't do it because you're a woman. So defeat makes it hard for us. It really does. It makes it hard for us. But now, I mean, we're killing it.
Yeah.
A lot of women are killing it, and it's a beautiful thing. And for some men, they can't stand it because they just want us to be in the back and not say a word, you know. But defeat is a powerful word, and it's what a lot of women go through, especially with children.
A lot of it is breaking away from, you know, these kind of dynamics that the expectation that every woman is supposed to have, right? So if you're not married by a certain age, something's wrong, right? If you don't have a child by a certain age, something's wrong with you, right? If you haven't, if you don't have this career and all these other things, something's wrong and stuff like that, right? But that doesn't really apply for men, right? So men kind of like, you know, we have a little bit of a pass where we could just kind of like do whatever we have to do, and then if the result is a good result, then it's like, all right, great, pat on your back and stuff, you know. But how do you break away from that stuff? Like, how do you as a person, as a woman, able to say, okay, I don't fit these society norms, but that's not who I am, and I'll move on from that. And stuff,
I think the way so when I started my organization, right, it was only for young girls, right? And my perception and what I wanted behind that was, if I teach young girls to be better young ladies who turn into better mothers, then we raise better children, right? But then I had to reevaluate that, because that's not true. Because as a woman, you could teach all those things and give your child all those ways, whether there's a 2-parent household or whether it's a one. But the turn that child takes has nothing to do with your parenting sometimes. It's just a role that they had to walk into. And I think the only way to break those barriers and to break that stigma of my biological clock and I'm supposed to be and this is supposed to be is to step out of the box that because it's nothing but a box. Like putting this, I need to be married at 30. I need to have a husband to have a child and to have a productive family. We need to take those stigmas and those stamps of this is how it's supposed to be off, because that's not how life works. We're only there mentally because somebody passed that on. Like you need to get married before you have a child, right? Who's to say that that's supposed to be the norm for her? Or you need to buy a house before you own a car. Who's to say that's the norm for her? We have to teach the children that we come in contact with that. Let your norm be your norm. Don't let somebody else your norm. Don't let somebody else step in to tell you need to accomplish this before you accomplish that. Because life happens, and if life don't happen that way, then the illusion of then I failed is what our children grab, right? And when I talk to young people all the time, the first thing I ask them, and this is how I get to know them, I ask them, what are your fears? And as soon as they open up their mouth to tell me what their fears are, I can tell why they are where they are. And then I step in and I say, but it's all an illusion, because fear is just an illusion. You build your own boundaries as an individual, because if that's the case, you probably done made mistakes, and you probably done made mistakes, and I done made mistakes. I said, well, guess what? I didn't go this route, so that means I failed. No, we have to teach the young people, us as though people who have impacts of children and then people that we come in contact with, that we have to take the system, take it apart, and put it back together. And it sounds like okay, well, it's easier said than done, but honestly, it's easy to do. You know, like us coming from working in the school system. Even if we together went back to those same schools that we worked in and them same adults that we work with and say, listen, no, we got a plan. This is how you need to do. You need to take the puzzle apart and put it back. And put it back with the middle being you, and everything else around it, let it be about you. Because it's not supposed to be that a man can't be a social worker, because guess what society says? Men are not supposed to be emotional. If your son cried, the first thing you said to him is, stop crying, you ain't a girl. Man up. So people don't realize that those words stick. And when a man becomes a teenager and he becomes an adult, he feels like, I can't go to my wife and cry to her when I'm hurting because I was taught not to cry. And then the wife feels like, I can't go to my man and tell him, my husband, and tell him because I need to be stronger for him. But in all actuality, being weak is a part of being strong. And that's what we have to teach the young people. It's just I think if we teach them how to rethink, and if you think differently, then you get different outcomes. That's the process. We have to teach them we have to deprogram them to reprogram them, but without limits and without boundaries, because that's why they stuck. They're stuck.
But Gracie, we were talking about a little bit, sorry, Kay, to cut you off, but, Kay, she spoke about being a parent, doing this work and stuff. I want you to chime in a little bit about being a parent, being a wife, being all these things, and still taking on this role of trying to impact community, run programs, run your own nonprofit as well too, and all these things. Like, basically, that's a lot. You got a husband, you got to think about, you got kids, you got to think about, you got all these things to. Like, how do you cut that pie up? Like, how do you cut that time pie up without people looking at you like, yo, what's up with us? Like, what's going on?
I don't know. I really don't. I was just actually saying, like, so that's why I was late, right? Like, so, gotta drop your kids off. Gotta make sure he knows that, hey, I'm about to check in and go do this, right? Make sure the kids ate before I got here. Still wrap up program, because technically program is not over for us until 7 o'clock. We had incidents today with middle school, people about to fight. So it's like, it's kind of hard, but then it's like, how do you kind of still commit to what I said that I was going to do today, right? So it's like, I said that I was going to show up, and regardless of everything else that took place before I got here, it was like, it was important that I stuck to my word and follow through, right? So I think part of it is trying to be consistent. I think the battle is, how do you stick to those deadlines, or how do you remain consistent? But how are you also not afraid to say, like, when you aren't as successful with something, right? So you have to be willing to say, you know what, I dropped the ball. You have to have good people around you to say, like, look, this is what you said you were going to do. I need you to stick to that, right? Right now, I'm asking that folks keep me accountable, because I get really off task when people start to speak to me, and I get really unfocused, right? So having somebody like Naima on the team that's like, nope, you got to get back on track. Or Asia, who's texting me to say, like, you remember you had that meeting to go to today, right? So it's really good to have folks around you who know what you don't do so well in, who can check you, but you also have to be receptive to that feedback to say, like, I asked you to hold me accountable to this, and you got to trust that if you ask them to do it, that they got you. It's not going to be easy. It's been several times that I said, like, hey, I want to start this nonprofit. It's really a big thing of mine. And there's been several times that I haven't, like, fulfilled that, right? Like, setting new deadlines to say, like, all right, I'm going to get this done. And I think not being afraid to just start again, right? Like, hey, I messed up 9 times, but this 10th time, I'm going to get it right.
Discussing some of your struggles and challenges, I mean, let's change the narrative. What success stories do you guys have about your experience, and with your help, one kid made a complete 360 change? And this is all across the board, so.
I have one. I think about a student whose mom was on drugs. She was really, really heavy on drugs. Emotionally, he suffered. It came to the school whenever he showed up. But he never really gave up on, like, himself. So no matter how bad his home life was, he stayed connected to the school setting. He stayed connected with the people who kind of had his back. And even when he was no longer a student, he came back and was, like, still in loop with us to say, like, hey, I need support. And we kind of followed up with him and followed through. And he's in a different environment. He's doing really well in terms of, like, starting out his own career. So have hell of a background, right?
What type of individual practices have you done? And maybe somebody listening can probably practice with one of their students that they're struggling with.
You have to be really patient. You have to be really patient. You have to be empathetic. You have to set boundaries, right? Especially when it's your work career, because there's certain things you can't do because you still are connected to a job, right? So as bad as this, I want to help you and I want to go above and beyond, there's certain things that I can't do, and you have to know your limitations. I think that you gotta ask for support. You gotta be able to go to folks and say like, hey, my student needs some help, and I need you to really use your resources to get them the help that they need. And you have to be willing to fight for that.
It definitely takes a village.
Yes.
Does anybody care to chime in on any success stories they may have had during their time in their positions and roles?
To have a young girl go from prostitution.
Wow.
And my first year of running my organization, I had my first gala, and she was in the shelter, and she came and she had holes in the shoes. Wow. She had a baby who was in a stroller. Till this day, I honestly don't even know how she found out about the event. I just know she came. And I think that week, I was like, I'm not doing this. To hell with Los Angeles Society, to hell with an angel, to hell with a gala. I was just like, to hell, because you get defeated. You know, the reality is you get tired, right? And I remember receiving an email from her, and I still get a little teary-eyed. And I remember sitting at my desk, because at that time I was working 2 jobs. I was teaching and I was working like as a security guard, right? And I got an email sitting at my desk, and I was like, who's this from? And I opened it, and she was just like, I want you to know that I came to your event, and because of you, like, because at the time Models Health gave us like 500 pair of shoes for like kids and stuff like that, so we was able to give them away. So I didn't even know what was in the box that she got, I just knew her child got a toy. And she was like, because of you, like, I have brand new shoes. I came to your event. I went in my bathroom. I dried my feet off, and I put paper in the bottom of my shoes because I had holes in my shoes, right? And she said when I got home and opened the box, she realized that it was brand new boots in there, and it was her exact size. Wow. And that her daughter, she had a daughter. The daughter got a doll in the stroller. And she was like, after hearing your story and realizing that I don't have to be my situation, like, I don't think I'm a prostitute anymore. And after that, I didn't hear from her for years. When I did my first back to school event, right, on my block in 2011, she came. And I'm getting teary-eyed. I didn't even remember who she was. She knew exactly who I was, and she walked up to me. Kay was standing at the table serving all the snacks, and she had on her handmade shirt for my daughter that said TLAS, and it was blazing hip-hop R&B outside, right? And Kay was standing out there, and the girl, like, I don't think no one knew who she was, I didn't even know. She walked up to me, she said, I want you to know that I'm no longer prostituting. And I'm like, wait, what? It's hundreds of people outside. And I'm like,
who are you?
Like, I don't know you. So she's like, you don't remember me? And I'm like, I don't. And then she said, you gave me boots at your first gala, and I came with my daughter in a stroller. And I'm like, she said, I sent you the email. And when she said that, I was like, oh my God. So she stopped prostituting. She actually at that time moved into her first apartment. Came to find out that the baby that she had was from her stepfather. So I was like, what? And like, if my entire career, like, that has been, like, I done had kids graduate high school, go to college, but to hear that you stop prostituting, and not to even know that the baby that you had was your stepfather's, and you still kept going, I was like, at that point, I was like, so who the hell am I to say I'm about to give up? Like, so that was like the greatest accomplishment. And for some reason, I can't keep in contact with her. I just feel like she's the angel that keeps having to come and remind me that you can't give up because somebody, I cannot keep in contact with her. Like, I don't even know what her name would be saved in my phone. Like, I can't find the email or nothing. So that was like,
to say that you didn't affect the ripples in that general
right.
Is just understatement. So
it was just like,
shout out
what?
to you on that.
Like, oh my God. So
that was like, I know we touched base a little bit on this and stuff, but you just spoke about, this young lady and how she was pregnant by her stepfather, right? And, I think the elephant in the room for our culture right now is this.
Did I open that box?
Is this
wait a minute. Pandora. Right, Pandora.
This R. Kelly kind of
documentary
that
they're gonna block me.
It's sent,
taking the world by storm.
Yeah, it's taking our culture by storm and stuff, right? Because I've just heard a lot of people have different opinions and on a lot of things, and it's really struck a nerve for our culture and stuff, man. And
we got into a heated conversation.
Yeah, we got into earlier, and we jumped right into it and stuff. Like, it was like, all right, let's go. But from your perspective, you have mothers in the room, you have powerful women in the room, you have all these things, but how do you guys see that? Like, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you saw that documentary, yo?
Parent accountability.
Hurt people.
Right. Hurt people.
And when pain is left unchecked and trauma is not dealt with, it's just going to have a residual. It's going to keep happening.
I think my view was probably, I'm off. Let me just say that for everybody.
You know what? I get
I'm off.
Right.
I didn't even fully watch it. I just watched a little bit of it. And I was like, oh, this is BS. Like, I just felt like there's people out here doing tons of things. We got the white people out here doing tons of things, but you don't see them out here having a whole show. But every time it's time for to showcase the black person, I feel like, all right, so R. Kelly he did it, but if it was a white girl, his ass would have been locked up. But because it's not, he get a whole show. Like, I feel like he's famous for something so negative.
And
that's what bothered me.
That highlights a lot, because if you look back in history, right, like there was a lot of historical stuff that you could look up. Elvis Presley himself, like, had all kind of underage 16-year-old, women. You have people like,
right.
And like you've seen it in all different cultures, right? And so, but it hurts when it's one of ours, right? It hurts when.
But
it's
then
one of ours.
Why you gotta get a whole show? Like,
but not even the show part, right? Because when I saw it, we had a conversation. Like it was myself, my wife, and two friends of ours watching the last segment of it, right? But when the first one came on, I was like in the house just cleaning because I have like. I can't sit down. I'm always doing something. And she was watching it. And then, like, I had the conversation with other people, and it just was like, it made me think of all the stuff that goes on inside the household, right? Because what do we teach our children? What's the first thing you tell your child? Well, one of the first things, whatever happens in the house, stays in the house. That is the worst. Because I felt like those things would have been brought out. Like, if it happened, it would have been talked about when it first happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we didn't teach that what happens at home stays at home. Because who's to say that they didn't go home and tell their parents?
Well, some of them were saying that. I mean, a lot of it seems to be that it was just
money.
They were paid off, right? Or like they were working alongside him. So it's like, we're going to sweep this under the rug again because there's money involved. Right. And so I think that's what I'm saying about parent accountability, right? Like, ain't no way you just heard all these allegations about him and my child is showing up to a show and I'm about to let you go off with him. That's not happening, right? Like, so I think at some point, to some degree, the parents need to be held accountable too.
But even earlier than that, in the documentary, they were talking about with R. Kelly and his siblings, what happened.
Right.
And they felt that they couldn't even tell their mom.
Right.
Even as adults, you saw the pain come into their face to even go there and revisit the fact that they couldn't come forward with what they said happened to them as children. Going back to what happens in the house stays in the house.
Right.
What if the person in the house is causing me pain?
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's very true. That's true. And it's scary, but it's scary. Like, even as an adult, like I said, like, it took me forever to tell that what I was going through at home, that I was displaced, It took me forever because I was like, who else is going to be affected? Because what happens with a hurt person is, and it sounds so weird, but it's true. A hurt person is still protecting everybody around them because they're like, the thought is, I don't want to lose this one person that probably is everything I have, or this circle that's around me. I don't want to disappoint nobody. So even in the hurt, it's like, like, what do you do in that hurt? But when I saw it, I was like you. Like, I was like, nah, that's bullshit.
I didn't think it was bullshit, but I did feel like the team kind of got to get held, got to get
somebody.
Absolutely. Because if I'm doing wrong, I hope somebody check me like, yo, you says you wildin', like, get it right.
Yeah, I think ultimately, the entire kind of like documentary just kind of put a mirror to our culture and stuff, And I think, while we're all mad at R. Kelly and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, like Zenobia said, like, R. Kelly is, honestly, he's one of the victims as well too.
Yeah. Are you guys sympathetic knowing that?
I mean, there has to be some sympathy.
And this kind of work that we all do, you feel for a child that was hurt.
Right, you feel right, but you the honest truth is you have to be, in anything in life, you have to be transparent. If you can't be transparent and see the dynamics of hurting people, then there's no way you could say that you're fully human. Like, I mean, that's just my perspective. I'm not justifying anything. If he did it, that's him. Whether he deal with it on earth, he gonna have to deal with it. Right. Ain't got nothing to do with me. But as accountability, as a human being, you have to, like, we have to, like, working with kids. If you saw your father beating your mother, right? It's up to us as the educators and the people that's around you to step in and say, no. That's wrong. That's not how it's supposed to be. You got a bunch of people around you who say they love you but not holding you accountable. Something's wrong. But if you don't teach that young person, you got to go to therapy because you saw your father beat your mother. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to repeat the cycle because there's nobody to break the cycle. And I just think that hurt people, and it's the scariest thing because you don't even know who's hurting. Right. Like, people, we hold stuff in. So it's like,
Ms. K, I want to get your perspective in because I'm a man and I'm raising two boys and stuff, and I just raised them from a perspective that from me as a man and stuff like that. But how is it? How do you instill those values in three grown men from a woman's perspective and stuff like that?
Well, being a single mom and you have all boys, they see the struggle already, and they know that they have to respect women. They know it because you tell them. Unconsciously, they know it. You tell them too, but then it's like, I don't know what you're doing when you go outside. I don't know what others' perceptions of you they have. So I don't know. I make sure I give you that information. But I also let them know that you can't bash each other. As a culture, this culture, African Americans, Latinos, we bash each other. We don't have a mute Harvey Weinstein. We don't have a mute Kevin Spacey. Trump. We don't have a mute Trump. We mute the genius
Cosby
because of the situations and because of the color of our skin. That's an issue. I watched Kevin Spacey twirl in a chair in a courtroom. You're supposed to sit behind a table. How is that possible? You're on the side. And it's like a twirl. Yes, he has a genius too. But his complexion, he has not had those experiences. So with boys, we have these talks in my house all the time. Like, it's always a debate. My mother, my oldest brother who's 52, and my oldest son who's 20. We have these conversations all the time, and it's just like, a woman's body, that's her jewel. You don't tarnish her jewel. You don't destroy her jewel. You respect her jewel. And the same goes for a man. A woman shouldn't do the same to a man. And just because a man may have strength, sometimes a woman can do it too. So we avoid that as well. Women make statements all the time. Men make statements too. But raising 3 boys, you have to prepare them for something like this, especially being black. You have to prepare them for what's to come because you just never know. My son, NYU, predominantly white women are there. And it's just like, you always wonder what's going to happen. You don't want to think bad, but sometimes you don't know. And you play sports. You might get involved with one of them. Something might happen, and then boom, you're being accused of something. And it's like, damn. It's like, I don't want to set you up for this, but I know your opportunity is here. But you have to instill it. If you don't instill that to them, then you're lost.
Right. When you have those conversations, are you very specific? Are you a little bit ambiguous on a sensitive topic?
No, you keep it real.
You gotta be real because I have boys. Like, I can't be like, listen, son, I'm gonna tell you.
The birds and the bees.
No. Listen, this is what it is. You can't do it, and that's the facts. Because you're gonna end up here, and I'm not taking you canned goods. I'm not doing like, you gotta speak to them because that's the first thing I say to my kids. You get locked up, There's no commissary nothing, because I didn't set you up for this. You have to be real. If you can't hide things. You can't hide things from your kids, because they're going to go out there and find it, and then they're going to find it the wrong way. And then there's a trail of issues. You got to be real with them, especially black boys, Latino boys. Like, you do, because there's nothing around them that's positive. So you have to instill it in them so that when they do go out, they were taught well. They know. They know better. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's no sugarcoating.
You know, Richie, I want you to chime in, because I'll be honest with you, I know this is a sensitive subject for you, Richie, and you was actually one of the first ones to kind of really, like, you know, really point this out. Like, even before the documentary came out, you know, you was kind of like putting it out there, like, nah, I'm not messing with this dude's music. Nah, I'm not doing this. I'm doing that. And, you know, and I pushed you a little bit. I kind of was like, a little bit. I pushed you a little bit, but just to kind of like, you know, push your thought process a little bit and be like, okay, but what about this? But what about this? But I know that that's a little bit of a sensitive subject for you and stuff. And you kind of being probably the youngest one at the table and stuff like that. I want to kind of hear what's your perspective on it and stuff, because it's kind of hit you hard from the beginning and stuff.
And I said this before the show started, like, the frustration for me is, why is this so unbelievable for people? Why are we talking about, we go from talking about girls being abused to, well, what about, I acknowledge, I've lived, I have younger sisters, the vulnerability of being a young black girl. And I just feel like people don't acknowledge that, they don't take it seriously, and it's scary. That's it.
So, it's true, right? So you got to look at it from your perspective, right? And all of you guys' perspective. There's a double minority, right? And so when you have a double minority, it's almost like you're working twice as hard, and you're even more vulnerable, right? Because not only are you black or brown, you're also a woman as well too. So you have to battle against all of these different elements that are trying to hold you back and push you down and all these other things, but you're doing it, you know, double than what everybody else is doing it and stuff like that. So, you know, Richie, I do understand, you know, your sensitivity around it and stuff, and it's tough, you know. Like, I don't have daughters, you know. I did grow up with 4 sisters, and I was very protective of them and things like that. And, you know, I can't imagine, you know, even being in a situation where I know that somebody's taking advantage of them or whatever the case is. And, you know, that stuff is tough. Like, it's really tough to process and stuff. So I do understand, you know, the perspective you had on it early. Like, Richie was like, nah, I'm not doing any two-stepping. I ain't doing anything. I'm not rocking with this dude anymore and stuff like that. And I truly respect you for that, you know, at the end of the day and stuff.
I think being a mother of a girl, my daughter's 10. One thing even in the interim of me going through everything I went through, I always knew self-value. That was just something that my parents taught me. So with my daughter, I'm real old school, and it's probably like sickening to most people, because I never bought her a doll that didn't look like her. First of all, she wasn't allowed to play with dolls until she got a certain age, because I didn't want her to think that women are just supposed to be in the house taking care of babies and cooking. My outlook of it was, you too young to push a stroller. She just started being able to polish her nails, because a child should be a child, right? And she still can't even wear certain colors. Ain't no, we going to get red, because my grandmother would have slapped me for having red, right? So I taught her, that's not your cookie jar. That's your vagina. Those are your breasts. Nobody's supposed to touch your vagina. Nobody's supposed to touch your breast. And I let her know, I always try to let her know that it's comfortable. So I'll say, Anaya, when she's going somewhere, what did I say? What's my rule? Nobody go in the bathroom with me, mommy. Nobody's asking me this, because you need to know outside of yourself and away from me, that it's okay for you to be, that you need to be comfortable. And at any given time that you're uncomfortable, you need to be able to feel comfortable to say something. And then I would say, I'm old school. Like I said, I grew up in we didn't sit on our uncle's laps. My father didn't even pick me up. I never had a sleepover till I became homeless. It was 7 of us. If you wanted a sleepover, you went from your bedroom to the living room, and you took your blanket in there, and that was the biggest sleepover. So, like with my daughter, her being the only child, she has friends who has fathers in the household who have brothers. You going to where? Sleeping over where? No, she got 3 brothers. Her father lived there. And not to say that a woman won't do it to her. Right. You understand? But my mental is, you'll be more fearful to tell me that a man did it. Because as a child, you'll look at his masculine. You'll look at you'll hear his voice. So you going where? Play date with, don't she got 3 brothers? No, she can't spend the night there. I know that's your best friend, but her father sleeps there, and then it's another man that sleeps there. And no. So I think as parents, accountability has a lot to do. Not to say that we're God. We can't shelter them from nothing. Everything that's supposed to happen is going to happen. But we have to take on the roles of being that parent and letting them know that you're beautiful outside of somebody sleeping with you. Because if you look at a lot of young girls who had babies that are teenage moms and who are sexually active, and I mean sexually active, because I don't have students tell me things that they did that I'm scared to do, right? I think we need to teach them that your body, like you say, your body is the temple, and nobody enters your temple unless they're worthy to, and not sex sells. And then mindful of what we allow our children to see on TV. Like, there's no reason that a 5-year-old should be idolizing Nicki Minaj. There's no reason that you should know Little Kim. There's no reason my daughter should be knowing Cardi B. You know, you have to be mindful of what you listen to, the music you listen to, what you watch. You know, like, it has a lot to do with,
Are you sympathetic towards women who weren't given that foundation that you were given, or you created?
Absolutely. And I'm more sympathetic. I'm sympathetic to them, but I'm more sympathetic to their parents because they didn't get it because it didn't come. They wasn't able. Absolutely. You know, like I learned, like there were certain things that my mom couldn't teach me because her mom didn't teach her. So it's not about the blame game and basting who did this and who didn't do this. It's about, well, when we gonna stop the generational curse, and when we gonna stop this cycle from 360 every time. Like, if I see you and your skirt's too short, I don't care that I'm not your mother. Young lady, you should pull your skirt down. That's if right. I hear you on the bus cursing, I say to young people when I'm taking my daughter on the bus to school, on the 101 bus, there's just this group of young kids who I'm sure the parents don't know their mouth is filthy. And as educators and people in the community who we want to be the impact, we got to take that step. I done said to young people, do you talk like that in front of your mother? You don't see me sitting here. And they'll say, well, you look my age. And I'll say, well, I'm not your age. The ones who do know. You know, and if we see a young girl kissed up and hugged up on the corner with a little boy, it's up to us to say, honey, that ain't cute.
Even if you get cursed out.
Right. Take that chance.
For what it's worth.
And I teach my daughter, young ladies supposed to be seen and not heard. You ain't supposed to be up there popping and twerking.
Too, you know, one of the things that also is a big influence in our community and why I know who I invited here because I want some folks to speak on some things. Danny, I want you to talk about religion. I want you to talk about the church. I want you to talk, you know, I know that is a really big influence in your life and the work that you do and stuff. And for all of us, I think that, you know, even if we're not everyday churchgoers and stuff like that, I think, you know, one of the things that I used to always tell Scotty, right or wrong, I used to say, yo, I'm not very religious, but I know I'm doing God's work, right? Oh, so Daddy, you know, what's the church like? What is, how does that impact you in this work and stuff?
Wow. This is probably like the end of this.
That's the closeout. There.
No, but anybody could chime in. But it's wow. It's Why didn't I ask the minister?
Please.
But yeah.
I've been in church now. Wait.
Can you repeat your question?
So
like, what does religion play into the work that you're doing? How does that happen in youth development and the relationship?
I mean, and I probably got to cut off my live because, but I'm gonna leave it there because some folk need to hear, right? So I've been in church since I was in 3rd grade, right? I was an evangelist. I was ordained an evangelist. I preached. I sung in a choir, And going through what I was going through, I went from being all of that to you can't get in my car because now I'm talking about homeless, walking down the street in the cold just to get to church, to the place that kept me sane, right? And the reason why I couldn't die swallowing the pills. Walking down the street and having somebody ride past me and wouldn't put me in their car to go to the same church because for means of survival, I ended up in a relationship with a woman at 17 years old. Right? It wasn't because I wanted to be, but it was the means of survival. I needed to survive. Mm-hmm. You can't get in my car because you're a lesbian and I'm a church girl, right? Church, my whole aspect and my whole outlook of the building, let me say the building, is totally different. Right, like I'm talking about going from.
But that's the thing. So I want to be clear.
I don't feel like doing enough.
But I'm saying there's a difference between being the actual building and being spiritual.
But I didn't learn that.
And so there's a clear difference in those things and stuff like that. So there are people that are just guided by, you know, the spirituality aspect of it and stuff, right? You know, like, again, going back to what I tell Scotty, like, you know, I always used to tell, like, look, I don't go to church every day on Sunday and stuff like that and everything, but I do feel like I'm doing God's work and stuff, right? I do feel like and the reason why I say I'm doing God's work is because I feel like I'm doing a calling. So who gives you the calling?
Right.
Right? That's who I feel like. Who gives you the calling, right? So I do feel like, yo, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I really, 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 really feel this is what I've been doing this type of stuff since I was young, right? And it's and I went into a different career and I went as a corporate and it just wasn't fulfilling, wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And the minute I got an opportunity to get up out of there and start to do the stuff that I wanted to be doing, I ran to it and stuff like that. So, you know, I wanna separate, you know, the actual building and stuff like that with just spirituality at the end of the day.
You just have to. It's just like the Bible says, you know, many are called and few are chosen, right? That's a good scripture in the Bible, right? That's what it says. And like you said, there's a difference, religion and relationship. And when I learned relationship and I learned that no matter what I did, right? Teaching, no matter which way I went, my calling was you gotta be the voice for the voiceless young people. And no matter how much I was like, no, you know, no matter how many times that spirituality stepped in and was like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And every time you step off course, oh, hell gonna break loose because your calling is that. And when it comes to like the church and like the spiritual aspect, my always combative is I felt like it's not doing enough. You know what I'm saying? I'm always that voice like we're not doing enough. You know, like the bodies in the church, not the building, the bodies in the church. Because we could tell each other all day about what's going on and we could save each other lives in the four walls. But what are you doing outside them four walls? Because the world work.
Well, but that's the
thing.
You know,
like, so, I was going to say, I think it depends on the church, right?
Right.
Like, so I grew up, my grandmother's a reverend. I have pastors in my family. Mm-hmm. I don't go to church every week, but I'm at least attempting to right now, right? Growing up in Catholic school, religion was a part of school, right? So you went to school, you spoke about God, there was books that referenced it, and it was a part of what you experienced. Transitioning to a public school, religion and education is completely separate, right? And so we don't have those conversations with scholars about religion because it's against what's being
right. Separation of church and state.
Right. Yeah, and so even now I can say with like working with a majority of students who are from Africa and who are Muslim, they embrace that. Right? Like they don't shy away from that when there's Ramadan and certain things going on. They rolling out what they need and they want to run because they want to pray.
When they fasting, they're not eating.
They ain't eating.
They need a room to go to and stuff.
It's like you can say I don't want to teach religion, but
it's there.
I respect your religion, right? And your religion is not my religion. But I think being sympathetic, right, and being compassionate with them to say like what you practice is what you practice, right? And it's not my religion, but it is what it is. Right. I do agree though that I believe in God, right? But I do also believe that when it's for you, it's going to be for you and it's going to continue to push. Like there's been several times I'm like, listen, I don't know if this is for me. This nonprofit thing is getting me stressed out and I got mad other things on my plate. But like y'all said, it's like it's gonna keep coming back to you, and if it's for you, it's gonna be for you, and he's gonna make sure that you have it. So
yeah, and you know, at the end of the day, like I said, if you don't, it's not about a church, it's not about any of those things, you know, and you know, everyone in here knows and understands, like, and you've experienced it, like when you are putting out positive energy, when you are supporting, and when you are helping people, and when you're doing these things, and those moments when you find yourself at your, you know, darkest moments, those are the things that come back to you and stuff, right? Those are the things that yeah, exactly. Those are your principles, and those are those blessings that come back to you when you were somebody's blessing at a difficult moment and stuff, right? And then at the moment that you needed something, then you know that blessing found you and stuff like that. So you know, everybody, like religion, you know, it takes different forms and all those things and stuff like that. But I do feel like there is a connection to spirituality, to this work, right? Like there is something about wanting to help human beings and stuff, right? Like, you know, just taking on that cause and stuff, like. And you have to be able, you know, at the end of the day, religion is about faith, right?
Right.
And
so
faith without
works is dead.
Right.
You have to do.
Right, exactly. And so if you think about the work that we do with kids and the youth, right? A lot of the work that we do with them, we're never around really to see those things bear fruit, right? Because, you know, we meet a kid in kindergarten, right? And he graduates and you never see him again, right? But that work that you put in, you have faith that at some point when they're down the line, you pass the baton, right? When you're working with them in high school and stuff, and they graduate and they go away to college and stuff like that, you try to have faith that the work that you did and the stuff that you put into it is going to bear fruit and stuff like that. So I think the common thread between, you know, the work that we do and spirituality and is faith. You got to have faith. They go hand in hand because besides this work, everything is about, I do something, I get a result, right? That's the motivation thing, right? But this work is not like that. Right. This work is about doing something, and we might not ever see.
And that's just how you have to live life too. You can't because true faith is unseen. You can't see faith. Just like you can't see air, you can't see faith. So you have to be able to see past what you cannot see. You know, like, so to think that if I get this child and I groom them at kindergarten and first grade, that I'm just going to be like, okay, by the time they get to you and going to guidance counselor for college, you know, you just know what you instilled. And no matter how much they go astray, they're going to always remember that first group.
My kindergarten teacher.
She was fun. She had, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember my third grade teacher. Like, I remember Miss Bobin, like Miss Bobin was yesterday. And I remember she taught me Get My Piece of the Sky by Linda Michelle Barron. And I am now 25. And I still remember, God forgive me, and I still remember. So, you know, like, we just have to know that no matter what happens, I played my part, and because I played my part's gonna stick. They may it's just like your kids. You tell your kids, don't stand on that corner, and they remember, mommy said don't stand on that corner, but they're gonna go do it, but they'll still stand there with knowledge, knowing that this is gonna happen. My mother told me, but I'm about to test the waters. And testing the waters, we gotta realize, is only a part of that faith, because you cannot be successful if you don't go back to where you weren't supposed to be. You have to go back to understand that I got to go forward. You got to go backward to go forward. So it's like, nah, faith is, you know, like that whole spirituality thing is just like, you know, just have faith in what you cannot see. Because if you could see it, why would you believe it? You got to be able to look past your own vision. You know, like, it's not. Nah, because everything happens for a reason. Everybody in here was supposed to happen for a reason. And if we never see each other in 10 years, you'll remember to sit there and you'll be like, yo, I sat there with a bunch of females and we was talking on this podcast, and, you know, you might not remember what you had on, but I'm going to remember that your eyelashes was off the hook, and I'm trying to feel like, well, you got them done that.
I just want to touch base, Leo, when you said that, because I'm thinking.
You took a minute to think about that question, Daddy.
Yeah, because it's rough. It's rough. It's rough because you are, you know, for me, I am spiritual. However, when in youth development, the kids don't see the same thing I see, right? So I have to come to work prayed up because I don't know what I'm going to come against. Not only with the kids, it could be with the staff, right? And then there are kids that don't even believe. Right. So when you're dealing with kids that don't believe, but you believe, You believe so much that you just know what's going to happen. And then you have people that are doing things that, you know, to, you know, what I believe in, it's wrong. Right? But in youth development, I can't show them that it's wrong. Mm-hmm. I have to still support what they do. If it's wrong, I have to support them in a way that they're able to trust me so that I could deposit the right message into them that may make them kind of see a bigger picture, right? So if it's selling drugs, if it's homosexuality, if it's all those different things, if it's, you know, just being disobedient or just not respecting your parents, or just if it's any of those things, you know, I'm not the one to be like, oh, you can't do that, and this, you know, that's not, you can't do that, right? But from a spiritual aspect, you fight yourself because it's like, what does the word say? Like, you know better, right? But in that instance, when it's youth development, you have to reach them where they're at. You have to. So it's not like you can lay it down. You just have to be strategic in how you get the message to them, right? Without it being like godly talk, right? Because I've had Muslim students perform in a gospel concert.
Right. You don't have them take off their hijab.
I have Muslim students actually get up and step. They don't know they know it's a gospel concert, right? But because they're not singing on the choir, because they're not doing the praise dance, okay, you're not doing none of that. Step. You still stepping for the gospel concert. Then there was kids didn't believe at all, right? For the first 2 years, and the third year, I want to sing. I want to take part. So in my heart,
you did your job.
You bugging, like, there is a God. Right. Are you kidding me?
Something wrong with you?
I was breaking at one of the gospel concerts. One of the principals was like, shh. And was a minister, but she was telling me, like, shh. I was like, nah, don't tell me there isn't a God, because so-and-so was up there in the third row singing a song, right? But at, you know, in the beginning, I was just like, it's rough. It really is. I mean, you go in, you have faith, you just know that these kids is going to be fine. You just know that whatever it is that they have to do for the day, or whatever it is that they're going through, that they're going to be okay. But when you're giving them the message, it's not God, right? You have to switch it up so they don't feel that way. And I have kids that be like, Miss Danielle, you only listen to gospel music? And I be like, no. That's all they used to. That's all I would give them. Because you get everything else. So I'm not going to give you what you already get. What you already get. You already get all that. You get Cardi B, you get all that. So I'm not going to give you that.
Right.
So when you come in here, it will be Hezekiah Walker. When you come in here, it will be James. Right. When you come in here, it will be
and they be singing the songs after you know
them. Right. They know the songs, right? And a part of my work and what makes me feel fulfilled in working with youth is when I'm no longer around and kids call me and be like, what's that song? Or remember you used to play this all the time? Or Mom, what's this? Or what's that? Or can I go to church with you? And I'm like, well, I don't work for the Zone no more, so come on.
Here we go to Sunday dinner.
I don't work for the Zone no more, so come on to help build this ministry. We need some young people. So that, because I feel like, you know, I'm a firm believer. If I can't touch them, if I can't touch all or get through to all, if I can just get through to one,
somebody gonna carry the message.
I'm good.
You know, as I'm gonna wrap up, you know, this episode and stuff, I think one of the things I want to make sure that I let all of you know is that, you know, there is a reason why you're here, right? There is a reason why I invited each and every one of you and stuff, you know, and you know, I've, you know, gotten to a place in my life where I feel like I'm at a stage as a person, I'm confident as a person where I feel like, okay, I have to go out there now and make an impact, but I do want to make sure and let you guys know that, you know, the person that I am right now, like, I wouldn't be there without things that I've taken from each and every one of you guys and stuff, you know, and so each one of you have crossed paths with me in my life at some point, or are going to kind of continue to move forward with me in my life, that are going to kind of continue to develop me as a man, as a person, as a leader, and all these things and stuff like that. So, you know, for me, this is, you know, this podcast thing is also kind of like a full circle thing for me and stuff, like to try to reflect on, you know, how did I get here? And then how do I take the things that you guys gave me and be able to pass it on to youth that I work with and things like that? Because, if you guys made me better, then I have to then pass those jewels down to the kids and people that I'm going to be working with. So I do want to sincerely thank all of you just for crossing my path. I hope you guys understand that.
Dope conversation,
and just being, there, and you guys don't really understand how much I learned from working with each and every one of you. For some people here, I was either your boss or your colleague or this or that. But those titles didn't matter to me and stuff. Those titles did not matter to me. I really approach every relationship where it's like, we're partners. We're in this together. I'm here to learn from you. I'm here to, everybody has qualities, and I wanted to absorb all of those things and stuff. So, everybody here understands that we've had conversations and things like that, and I probably got annoyed with all the conversations that I had with them and stuff like that. But that was my process of learning from you and stuff. So, this was just like a continuation to that and stuff, and I really want to thank you guys for coming out. This was like a dream project for me, and I want to thank you guys for coming out and helping this dream kind of come true. And I promise you that, the work that you guys had done with me and instilled in me and the jewels that you've dropped here, I will continue kind of to propel those things forward, and they're going to continue to have an impact on our community and stuff. So thank you for coming out and stuff.
Thank you. Leo, you're very you. And that's I remember I sat at the table and Leo was the one who hired me, right? And I sat at the table and I prayed the whole time I get there that I was like, I don't want to be interviewed by no woman because I don't have time. I just don't want to be interviewed by a woman. And I sat and I saw Leo and I was like, okay, he could dress, he black, he gonna hire me, right? And so Leo gave me I knew when I walked in the room and when he walked in the room and he sat down, his energy was my energy. I didn't know him, but our heartbeat was the same. I could tell by the way he was attentive and he was listening to what I was saying. And it just wasn't why do you want to work here? Tell me something about you. And, because he took that step and he had faith in me, everything I did, I was like, oh shit, Leo gonna see this. I gotta make sure I do this right? I gotta do, and then when I would come to him with things that nobody else would listen to me, I'm like, you know what? I don't even need to talk to you. Let me go to Leo. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy because he would look at me and I'm like, Leo, I'm taking 22 kids to BBQs to the cancer walk. And he what? And somebody else told me no, that, I couldn't do it because they didn't know if I could handle it. And Leo was like, nah, she got it. So I want to thank you for being present when you were supposed to be present and being in position where you were supposed to be. Because had you not would have been in position, I wouldn't have impacted the 22 young girls that I had to impact. So, like you said, everything happens for a reason, and you played a role in me being able to play my role. So thank you for being in position and, not being a woman and being a black woman. Because I wouldn't have been at PA1. Okay?
Zenobia, I'm happy that you made it and stuff, because Zenobia worked with me at County Cullen, so that was kind of my start of working in nonprofit community sector. So Zenobia worked with me when I was really kind of just learning how to be a leader and how to do all these things. So she got the most raw part of me that you guys didn't experience and stuff like that. So
they got him a little polished.
Yeah, I got me more polished. So I'm glad you was here, Zenobia, but you can kind of see the evolution and everything.
Yeah, we saw him in the gym one day, Sty was like, "What's that guy in the gym?" I'm like, who? Let me see. I was in the building for a couple of years, so let's see this. Get down there, I'm like, okay. But the way he was so hands-on with the kids. He started with the gym. I don't know exactly in position, but all the kids in the class wanted to do their homework because then they wanted to go to the gym.
Right.
So like, okay. And then from that, he just evolved, and we found out he was going to be our supervisor. I'm like, what? Here comes Leo down the hallway with the suit and tie. I said, oh, he changed up. Now he's going to act different. He was going to the gym. Now he's going to start acting different. And that never happened. The suit and we never all changed. Held our breath waiting for
the socks. He wants you to see with socks. I'm like, I don't even care. I don't care what kind of socks you have on, Leo. That doesn't matter. Yo, and then he made me. I used to bake cookies from scratch, right? I had to stop at the front office to make sure he get his cookies first before I get down the stairs. Chocolate chip, oatmeal raisin cookies. And I used to be like, so I'm not at work. I had surgery on my leg, and he like, yo, Simmons, when you get back to work, because these kids are crazy. Wow. I'm like, don't they pay you to direct? Like, you know, like, he was just...
He was just never the typical director.
Right, he wasn't.
It was always that open door. It was always that, I feel you're hearing. Yeah. And we all felt that way. We had staff that way.
I done sat in the classroom and cried. I cried.
We're not gonna go into the whole protest. Shit, Zenobia, we're not gonna go into the whole staff protest and everything. We're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna wrap it up right there. We're gonna wrap it up. Angel, you have anything you want to close out with?
I just want to thank the ladies for coming out, providing your insight, and just the dialogue and see what you guys are coming from. And I could see why Leo chose you guys specifically to be here and shed some light on some of you guys. So thank you guys for that. And also thank you for the people who've been tuning in on live as well. Please follow us at BHWH Leadership Academy just to be in tune with the future events and future episodes and just see what we're doing as an organization starting from the ground up.
Movement.
Yeah. Movement.
Follow us on Instagram. I'm gonna put this podcast up on the bio link. You know,
share it with your friends.
Share it with your friends. It'll be on YouTube and stuff, so it's easy to just copy and paste and send it to somebody. But again, thank you for coming out, ladies. I really appreciate it, and I promise you we'll do part 2 soon. All right, have a good one.
Part 2 gonna be about this.